Our next speaker said in an interview, the digital transformation of the Volkswagen Group means that Volkswagen is becoming an integrated hardware, software, and service company and offers the best user experience in terms of products, mobility solutions, and services. And now we all have the chance to listen to his keynote. Welcome on stage JJ, formerly known as Johann Jungwirth. He is the Chief Digital Officer of Volkswagen Group. Welcome on stage, Johann. We need a microphone, please. Thank you.
Sorry for that. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad you're here this morning. So, our motto this year here at CEBIT 2018, at the new CEBIT, is shaping the future. And what I will focus on today is shaping the future with mobility as a service. I personally believe that mobility as a service, mobility on demand, is having the potential to actually disrupt this industry, to actually be a big new business field. And let's dive right in. What if, with mobility as a service, users would be immediately able to get picked up by the push of a button and get from A to B, get from door to door, very conveniently and also at lower costs compared to owning a car like today, and at a higher convenience, offering actually safe mobility for all. Also mobility for the elderly, for children, for blind people, for everyone. I really think mobility for all is actually the key, and it will give all of you, give all of us time back. There are statistics that we are spending today actually about 38,000 hours in our lifetime in the vehicle, in our cars, just behind the steering wheel. And we all know it, right? I mean, flying on a plane, on a train, with a bus, you can play with your children, you can do other things, you can read, you can sleep. And we actually think this is possible on four wheels with individual mobility, with self-driving vehicles. And this is what we are working on. And this is what I would like to talk about a little bit in more details today. Now, you see in this video, this is kind of a future outlook. This is in cities, where 100% of the traffic has switched over to self-driving mobility. We do expect probably for 20 to 30 years we will have mixed traffic. We will have vehicles like these traveling on our roads, bringing us from A to B. But there will be also vehicles, still human-driven. And the self-driving vehicles, actually, powered by this self-driving system with an AI driver, will actually be able to cope with human-driven vehicles. They will just actually flow with traffic and be able to actually interact with these human-driven vehicles, with pedestrians, with bicycle drivers. And you can see, they even can smile, they can talk to us pedestrians or to bicycle drivers. They will actually tell us that they see us, that we can cross a pedestrian crossing. So it will also be kind of like a human life and human-like experience. Now, what does this mean for cities? Why are we actually doing this for cities? I do personally believe, even for a city like Hanover, where we are today, this will actually make a difference. It will make cities clean because these vehicles are electric. It will make cities quiet because of this quiet drivetrain, and this will increase quality of life dramatically. Think about it. Today, when a loud truck or a loud bus or a combustion engine-driven vehicle, passes by a stroller with a baby which is sleeping, very often I have, myself, 3 small children, they wake up because of these noises, and it will actually probably not even make a difference, whether your property, your home, your house is next to a street or somewhere further away next to a forest, because cities will become quiet with these new electric drive vehicles. It will be convenient to get from A to B. You just push a button with your app or with this new one button which we designed also for children to just have it in your pocket, to push the button, and with GPS it locates the person and it can send the next Cedric, the next self-driving car to this location. It will make traffic safe. We all know 91% of all accidents today are caused by us humans. And if you think about 1.25 million traffic deaths today, another 5 million injured today in traffic, if that would happen with airplanes, it's about 2 A320 crashes per week. We would shut down air traffic right away. And we just kind of got used to it. But now is the time, with self-driving vehicles, we will be able to make traffic so much safer, even on roads. And then, of course, it's accessible. This is very close to my heart, because I think it is actually important. We can offer individual mobility for all people and make it accessible. And in the US, it's even required by law. With these new mobility as a services offerings, with the ADA compliance, American Disability Act compliance, we need to make sure that we offer this service to everyone, whether you have one of these walkers, or whether you have a wheelchair, or whatever accessibility needs you have. This service will include everyone. This is important. Now, the interior will also play actually quite an important role. I also say, the interior is kind of the exterior of the future in terms of design, in terms of focus. You will see modular integrations of all kinds of, new furniture. You will see self-driving vehicles equipped to become a wellness room, a fitness room, or a lounge, or a gaming room, or an office. I actually think the opportunity, once the dashboard is gone, once the steering wheel and pedals are gone, is so massive actually to come up with very, very different kinds of solutions. And this is actually very near. I mean, I personally expect in the next 2 to 3 years in the United States market this to start, and then China, Asia, and then Europe and Germany. We do know we need to have, especially for Europe, UN ECE regulation changes, the Vienna Convention, Geneva Convention. We cannot, basically register these cars. We cannot homologate these vehicles, certify these vehicles as of today. But in the United States, actually, a lot of this is already prepared, and that's why I do believe that in the US we will see the first rollout, actually, in commercial fleets with self-driving vehicles, mobility as a service. Now, I brought a few video snippets with me to just look at these scenarios. And Cedric is the abbreviation for self-driving car for all people. And you can see actually that there's a blind lady actually in this video, and she will access the Cedric. The door is just opening, and you can see she's touching actually the top of the vehicle as she enters the vehicle, and then kind of also feels that she sees where the seat is, and has a blind dog actually with her to lead her. This is one scenario, and if you think about blind people not having potentially access to individual mobility today, this is now possible because they don't have a driver's license, they can't drive. Another scenario, talking about these self-driving vehicles, to actually make roads safer. You see these kids playing, and as the ball was on the street, you could see basically the whole traffic from left and right stopping for this kid actually to make sure they are safe, and with a 360-degree sensing across all sensor layers. This is actually very important. Now also, access for elderly. You can see the lady here on the left with this walker. She actually called a Cedric, and Cedric stopped to pick her up. Very easy actually with this walker to get into the vehicle, take a seat, put your seatbelt on, and the vehicle is ready to bring this lady from A to B. Very, very important to really include everyone in this future. And I think this is not just fitting for Volkswagen. I mean, what Volkswagen stands for. Volkswagen, Wagen fürs Volk, really a vehicle for everyone, a vehicle for the people. And I think this is actually part of our DNA. It started with the Beetle, It continued with the Bully and this microbus. It continued with the Golf generation. Now with the ID family going into electric drive, next generation vehicles with the electric powertrain, and now with Cedric basically making the next step. Here's some close-up pictures. We have actually created 5 of these Cedric family vehicles, actually in the meantime, for different use cases. And I just want to take you along, and in this video snippets, we actually have some additional use cases, some additional Cedric variants to just get an imagination, how that future will look like as we are shaping the future. Now you can see business people, just traveling from A to B. You can have, you have 4 seats. You have up to 4 people to actually just walk into the car and take the seats. 2 of these seats are foldable, so you can either have, or access the vehicle with 4 people, or actually with like 3 people and have some luggage with you, and you just basically put the seatbelt around the luggage, and you don't have a trunk or a frunk to basically just go inside. It's very easy accessible. You have these massive portal doors actually to access from both sides. This is Cedric Nightlife, the world premiere for this vehicle. We had actually in Beijing, in China, to kind of show a very interesting use case. Actually, you see this golden microphone on this rear seat sofa for karaoke singing and having some fun. There's actually a digital floor and a digital ceiling, and you actually see some additional use cases, like here, just married. This couple just married, actually calling this Cedric Nightlife, and it's actually very beautiful, beautiful vehicle. Actually, in terms of design, with this black or dark blue paint, and with the blue colors also around the doors, as you can see it here as the doors are closing. I think this is the most beautiful in terms of exterior design, and also another use case for a freshly married couple. Now, you see some scenes at night, for example. You see a pop-up store just arriving on this marketplace. So think about use cases like these. It's almost like a vending machine on wheels. See this guy actually approaching with his smartphone, placing the order, and the store basically without a person being there and handling this. It's like a vending machine, grabbing the things and then going back, having some dinner or whatever. You can think about a farmer's market. You can think of a lot of use cases like these. And as a pop-up store, for anything, being a technology items or food or anything else, it's actually quite easy to, go to a different place and serve different people, actually maybe throughout a day or throughout a week. Also a very interesting concept. Now, another use case here, and you see different colors of the Cedric Nightlife. I actually think it's quite, let's say, open for imagination and a very creative process. And I also want to invite you at this point to be part of an ideation, of a co-creation work this week. And we have an award to give away on Friday. We call it the Future Mobility Award. So if you have not heard about it, not read about it, send us your idea of a Cedric of the future, of a self-driving car use case you are thinking about, we might not have thought about, or our design team, our future centers might not have thought about. So send your idea to FMA, which is abbreviation for Future Mobility Award. So FMA at discover-stf18.com. SDF stands for Shaping the Future. So FMA at discover the future, or no, Shaping the Future, stf18.com. Now, Setec School Bus with another variant. We actually thought about, hey, how about bringing kids to school, or bringing kids to a playground, or bringing kids to their sports events. And this is also something which you can do, because you don't need a driver's license, you don't need a driver, and kids actually had some fun. You could actually say it's making this Cedric child safe, and you could call it Cool Bus or whatever. But I actually think this approach of actually offering individual mobility for children. Either if they have a smartphone, they can call it with that, with our mobility app, or if not, we can give them our one button, this little button, like an Amazon dash button for mobility, to actually call the next self-driving vehicle or the next school bus. Now, also on the interior, you see these aluminum boxes here on the left, where you can put in the sports bags and bring the children, and also having some fun actually to go to school or to go to a sports event. Here you see it in action. You see the three boys. They actually had called their school bus to bring them to school in the morning. You see additional ones actually bringing other kids to school. And at the end of the day, this is convenient and it's safe, and it's actually great even for us parents, right? Knowing that children are taken care of. Now, we have another variant actually, which is Cedric Active. And let me show you a brief video here. So, for active people, for sports people, so think about this use case. Like a mountain biker, Cedric brings you in the morning to the top of the mountain, and as you drive down the hill with your mountain bike, Cedric follows you, or you have let to know Cedric where your destination is, where it should wait for you, or it just follows you if you give him access to your smartwatch with GPS. Or when you arrive at your destination, you basically just push a button and it will pick you up. And another use case for kayak drivers, right? You go down a river and it brings you to your starting point and will actually just drive to the end point. It drives to the destination and will pick you up there. The same for windsurfers, maybe going from one beach to another. So I also think this is a very, simple but actually quite effective way of not having to have another person driving your car actually to the destination. And you get the point. The world premiere for Cedric Active was actually here at CEBIT yesterday, and you can visit our stand, our booth A23 in Hall 25, and take a look. You can sit inside. If you have never been sitting in a self-driving vehicle and never experienced it, just go and actually take a look, sit inside, enjoy. It's actually a very, very different experience, seeing and feeling actually a vehicle without a steering wheel and pedals, without a dashboard. It is awesome. And just last week, I actually have taken another drive in our Cedric prototype, actually near Wolfsburg on a test track. It's quite an amazing feeling. I really like it, and you see the improvement in the technology. Now, our friends in California call this Cedric Dude. Basically to bring that to the beach, and you see it was a very late night surfing on the beach, and Cedric Dude is coming to pick this lady up, just coming back from the beach, and bring her home, just putting surfing equipment on the rooftop, and then being driven home. So this is Cedric Dude. Now here's the whole family. These are the 5 Cedric prototypes actually which we built in reality. We did a lot of user testing. We brought a lot of people in, and I have to say, it is actually very important that we bring people in. And starting tomorrow, actually at our Autostadt in Wolfsburg, we will have Cedric Nightlife actually at Autostadt for several months, actually, to have really hundreds of thousands of visitors, of people, to actually make them aware of the future, and really give them a chance with some videos and a beautiful city, how the city changes, how actually this mobility as a service will help us actually and will improve our lives. Now on the business side, it's also important that we actually look at what does it mean, what do we actually need to do, and what is it in terms of an opportunity. I do think that it's a massive business opportunity. And when you look at what we as a company need to do to actually approach this, on the one hand, in addition to layer 2, where we come from as an automotive OEM, designing, developing, producing these and selling these vehicles, we now actually need to work on this self-driving system, right? The AI driver, which replaces us humans as drivers. On layer 3, we need to build fleet operations in each of the cities, and this will actually be rolled out city by city by city by city. It's not just, testing a vehicle somewhere, in the summertime, in the wintertime, at cold temperatures, hot temperatures, and then actually just releasing it worldwide. We actually need to go city by city, and that's also where I think scaling actually will be very, very important. And then the fleet control center, which you need to actually steer your fleet and control the fleet and tell each vehicle where to be, also anticipating where demand will pop up in the next few minutes. And predicting that is very important, of course, also there with machine learning-based algorithms. Then as a mobility provider, and we have started to build this up with Moya, our mobility brand, actually with mobility services like ride-hailing, ride-pooling, and building the platform for that, building the user experience, the apps for that. And then layer 5, which is the content providers. New partnerships. If you think about that, you can build in a large screen, like in your home, and bring in all this content, for entertainment, for education, like you see it here on the right-hand side with this content store, for shopping, for working, for being productive, and also, actually, I personally believe that advertisement will play an important role. If you think about the opportunity, actually, to bring advertisement in and potentially even have mobility from A to B to actually be paid by service providers. Like if you book a restaurant, let the restaurant, pay for the drive, the transportation to the restaurant. It's basically included in the meals. Or if you're actually booking a hotel, you drive from the airport to the hotel, could be included in that service. Or going to a grocery store, let the grocery store within a certain radius actually include the mobility. So mobility can somewhat become ubiquitous, completely new models for that. Now, on the technology side, just a few words here. So I do think it's a hugely complex task. We all know that, who are working in this field, who are executing now on this. You need 360-degree laser, radar cameras, and ultrasonic short-range radars. You need a central computing unit, which is actually massive. You need redundancy, like in planes today, redundancy in the sensing, in the compute, in the power supply, in the braking, in the steering, and AI-based software, the whole perception module, from the planning through the decision-making modules all the way to the learning map and localization. I personally think we have an advantage as the group to actually develop this self-driving system just once and then deploy it actually across the board throughout these different brands we have, our 12 really great brands with great products, but then also these 2 new yellow marked fields of products like new mobility as a service vehicles I just showed, but then also new vehicle concepts for owned autonomy. And I also think looking at the vehicles, on this layer 2, as you saw before, they will be developed with new requirements in mind. You see some things are higher, have higher relevance in the future, some have lower relevance, and you can see low costs per kilometers are very important. This is a very key driver actually in the future to make these business models actually work. And let me finish with a quick look at 3D mobility. This is the next step. Think about Cedric, to be built in a modular way. And, looking at the skies, especially the city sky, is basically still available, And you all have heard about 3D mobility, vertical mobility. But let me show you a new concept our team from Ital Design, our Audi subsidiary, has been working on. So think about Cedric in 2 modules. So this is the ground module, basically kind of like a skateboard with a powertrain and everything, including the self-driving system. This is the capsula you sit in. And this is basically Cedric kind of in 2 modules. Now, in addition, you see this interface at the top for a 3rd module, which is this air module. And now what this would enable to do, and this is actually my last picture showing a city, this is Stuttgart. Think about, you can get from A to B with a portion of the ride being on 4 wheels on the ground module, sitting in the same capsula, like in a self-driving vehicle. Then a portion of the ride could be the same capsula in this Hyperloop train, integrated to go with high speed, from Stuttgart to Berlin or to Hanover. And then the last portion of the ride could actually be remaining sitting in the same capsula, over the air, basically in the air, picked up by this air module and decoupled from the ground module. And there's a team actually working on this. I do believe 3D mobility, as we see it today, unimodal, can develop into a multimodal transportation with this modular approach. It will be hard work to get there and get this certified, but I think if we have a breakthrough there, this is a major, major innovation. And with that, I think we can go and cover some questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, JJ. Very interesting insight. So we have a little bit challenge with our Slido. So we have to do it in a conservative way. Are there any questions from the audience?
Maybe we have a microphone to
we do have
cover.
Here. Okay. And please introduce yourself and then ask the question.
Hi, my name is Alex, and I've also 2 daughters at home. And I will ask you, they are 1 and 5. Do you think they will need a driver license as we did it in the past?
So it depends on where you live. If you live in Phoenix, or if you live in Silicon Valley, or if you live in LA, or if you live in Austin or Houston, likely no. If you live in Munich, or in Hanover, or in Berlin, or in Hamburg, I do think, in terms of rollout, we'll see it in the next 2 to 3 years in the United States. Then, maybe 2 or 3 years later, ramping up in China, and maybe around 23 to 25, if regulation will be ready with UNEC regulation and everything else, and being able to register and actually certify, homologate these vehicles in Germany, that should be the time when we see the initial kind of commercial launch also here.
More questions? Yes, here.
Thank you. My name is Harald, and the question is, what are your assumptions, your implicit assumptions about the behavior of the human drivers in this transition period where we'll have human drivers and Cedric on the road regarding traffic on busy streets in Hamburg or in Rome or in Bangalore? Just trying to imagine this.
Yeah. So I think in some of the cities you just mentioned, it will not be a problem. I think in cities or in regions, in countries where people adhere to traffic rules, it actually will just, basically be like human-driven vehicles. So people, other, human drivers will not even realize whether this is a self-driving vehicle or not, because they will just fit nicely into traffic. I do believe that in some regions or countries, you mentioned Bangalore, India, if it's a 3-lane street and people drive in 5 lanes, it will be a difficult situation. And, basically we need to have some legal framework. We need to have traffic rules which are followed. So that's why I do believe, like India and maybe Africa, some other, regions, it will just take longer. It will take longer because first people really need to follow traffic rules before we can deploy this. Because what we will not do is, let these self-driving vehicles where we have the full, let's say, liability, to not adhere to the law.
One question, and then, yes.
Hello, thank you very much for your speech. My name is Caroline, and I have a question concerning the charging infrastructure. So how can you make Cedric driving around, charging? Where should it charge? What is your opinion? Where will we be in 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually, because what we do need is service hubs, what we call them service hubs. And personally, I do see the opportunity, on the one hand, for example, to include our retail network. We have a broad retail network. We have a lot of, VW retailers, dealers, basically, today, which have massive parking lots, and basically, what we can do, include them basically in this rollout with a new, franchise agreement, and let them, do the cleaning and charging and parking and, maintenance and potentially repair. And for them to actually build up kind of like a central infrastructure in these service hubs or dealerships or maybe even rental car companies and include their service hubs as well. So there's a lot of infrastructure, and the good thing is you actually only need a few of these service hubs in each of the cities, so you can have these central points where you build up, for example, the charging infrastructure, which is much easier than actually building up an infrastructure in every person's home.
Thank you. One question, and then we have to move on. Yes, here in front. Or do you want? Okay, sorry. He was first. Yeah. We need a microphone there. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Ingo, and I'm here from Hanover, working for VW, and it's very nice to see you here and to hear your speech live. But I had this energy question. Is there a strategy to involve some kind of sustainable energy provider to, let's say, put this energy into these hubs, what you just explained? This was one question. And the second is, how do you think about interconnecting the cities? Do you use MAN or Scania, something like this? Thank you.
Yeah, very good question. So of course, clean energy is important to us, and we have actually a whole team working on that to make sure that the energy is clean, which we provide to these vehicles. Second question is, multimodality is important, and I think that will also be a different region by region, city by city, or even country by country. I mean, we have countries where we have a great public transportation network and with high-speed trains and so on, where city-to-city connections will likely continue to be covered with high-speed trains, which is awesome. Now, in addition, of course, as I showed, one of the, let's say, categories of products is also buses, and it's trucks, and trucks without a cabin, right, as you don't need a driver. So I think that is very, very, local question and depends on the overall infrastructure. But I am very in favor of actually a multimodal approach and including and fitting this nicely into public transportation and other modalities, including bikes and e-bikes and so on.
We have a little bit more time for questions. So the man in the front here with the blue, yeah.
Thanks for sharing the vision. Wonderful work. One question regarding supplier and partners. How do you plan to use them or involve them in order to achieve this vision in a faster way?
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually. So this is also very close to our heart and very important that we include our partners, besides our own, brands and companies and subsidiaries. So I do see a massive opportunity actually for additional partners in addition to our tier 1, tier 2 network we have today, which we need anyway also for these products, because we are still talking about physical vehicles with just different interior design, different exterior design, different dashboard, different technology. So I think new partnerships, especially when it comes to sensors equipment, when it comes to the massive compute, when it comes to the AI-based software for this self-driving system, and then additional partners, for the interior concepts. Why not partnering with furniture companies? As this is a modular approach, as we have it already since many years in our T-series, in our microbus, and also new partners on the digital side. You saw this slide with a digital ecosystem, a massive opportunity actually for content partners and other partners to actually come in and bring in their digital services or products or anything people might enjoy or might want to be productive, to be entertained, to play. So I think it's a massive opportunity for additional partnerships.
Thank you. We have questions from the left side here in the first row.
Hi, Chris von Bertrand. First of all, thank you very much for sharing Volkswagen vision and perspective of the future with us. And my question is, wouldn't there be an opportunity for car-free centers to try to position those cars, to position Cedric, and in the same time solve the problems of the pollution in city centers we do have today? Isn't there an opportunity for everyone to electrify and self-drive everything in the city centers?
Yeah, it's also a very good question. I think this will also, depend on the cities. We are massively involved already with Moya, with the cities actually, to see what the cities are willing to do and want to do. So we very much adapt also to the cities. But as I said before, multimodality, including basically driving-free zones in the city centers where you just use bikes or e-bikes basically to enter, or you just walk. It's also healthy. But we did a simulation, for example, for Berlin, like the inner S-Bahn ring, where we said, okay, let's switch all vehicles which are current, individually owned to shared vehicles. What we see is we would only need like 1/7 of the total population of current, vehicles. I mean, we know the usage of our products today or of the vehicles today is only 4%. So ownership vehicles, they are only used 4%. They are sitting around all day, so basically 96% of the time. Now we see usage in the simulation going up from 4% to about 40%, so 10 times higher usage with these shared electric vehicles. So even though, and I think this is an important note, even though, let's say absolutely seen, we only need about 1/7 of the total population of vehicles actually to cover a whole city with quite acceptable quality of service, like a maximum of 5-minute wait time during regular hours, a maximum of 15-minute wait time in the peak hours in the morning and the afternoon. And these vehicles actually will be end of life, like after 2 years and 2 months, maximum 2.5 years, just because of the high usage of 40%, right? So that means they will be replaced about 7.5 times more often. And that's why in terms of production volume, this is not a negative effect. And thinking about all the new user groups, like blind people, elderly, children, and so on, we can actually offer these services too. We also think some people might switch over from public transportation as the costs will be lower, per mile or per kilometer. So in total, it's actually a positive effect for the cities, positive effect for people, for us humans, and it's still a positive effect for the companies involved.
One question here in the front row. Yes.
Hello. Thank you for the talk, very interesting. Bertrand, working in Germany for Renault Nissan Financial Services, and you were speaking about hubs, and I find very interesting what you think. If you can tell us what will be the competition or the collaboration between the car manufacturers in the futures. It will be a big question. There will be some places for collaboration. Where do you see it?
It's also a very good question. We all know, right, there is strong competition, which is good. Competition makes us strong and makes us better. Now, I do see opportunities for collaboration. I mean, we started that already with Ionity, and Ionity, you find them also at our in Hall 25, I should say, a separate booth. Where we just work together on the infrastructure, on the charging infrastructure across Europe. I think this is a very important approach for collaboration. You might also see self-driving system, platform companies actually sharing the technology and that being used across different OEMs. And then when it comes to the different layers going from layer 1, where I see a lot of collaboration, layer 3, the infrastructure also. I think on layer 2, on the products themselves, it will be a mix, right? I mean, some companies will decide to collaborate and share platforms, like our modular electric architecture, the same on kind of layer 5, the whole content providers. I mean, content providers will basically provide the same content to you as to us, and so on. So there will be strong collaboration. I do think in terms of, let's say, layer 4, like facing customers and actually having the customer ID, the customer account, at the end of the day, there will be strong competition, right? And also there will be competition about who is first in the city, because, whoever is first in the city, building up the infrastructure, having the fleets, having maybe 80% of the market, plus minus, actually will have a huge competitive advantage. And I think it will be difficult if other players come in 12 to 24 months or 36 months later, if a city is in someone else's, in a competitor's hand, so to speak.
Okay, we have one question here.
Hi, my name is Kevin Hasenkamp. You just took my question away with a competitor entering a city first, so that will be difficult. A second question is on the content layer. Is it a possible scenario that maybe the consumers choose content over hardware platforms? So they want to watch their favorite Netflix series, so they will choose Netflix over whatever branded car is available.
So I do not expect, let's say, on the digital content, so many differences. Eventually, we will all offer the same type of content. I think it's more about the user experience, you know. Does someone have, you know, like a 12-inch screen, or does someone have a 60-inch, you know, OLED experience where you can actually watch your Netflix series in full screen across the whole windshield? And will someone offer, you know, augmented reality so that as you drive through cities and through places, you get all this additional information and so on? And, you know, I mentioned before these different use cases like, you know, a living room experience or a lounge experience or a gaming room experience or an office environment experience or, you know, your wellness room, your fitness room. I think those are the user experiences and use cases basically, which will make a huge difference. And you know, if you just offer like pure transportation from A to B with 2 or 4 seats or so, and do not take care of those additional use cases and user experiences, I think that's where the competition, or where actually users, where people will choose, you know, one experience over the other.
So yes, 2 questions more, and then here, yeah, perfect.
Hi, my name is Arndt. My question is VW planning to enter the market of positive and negative control energy to stabilize energy networks via Cedric?
Yeah, it's also a very good question. Of course, this whole concept of smart grids, right, and having the ability with electric vehicles, especially with large fleets, to use these batteries for this. It's something, you know, the industry has been working on probably now for, you know, 10, 12, 15 years. We have teams actually working on this. I cannot say yes or no today. So I think it's still, let's say, a bit too early, but you know, we have our Kraftwerk in Wolfsburg. You know, we are actually an energy provider today. We're switching over, you know, to more clean energy there, and we have a team of people actually working on this. So stay tuned on that.
In the first row.
Hi, I'm Helmut from Berlin. Thank you, JJ, for sharing the vision. One question about the scenarios, not in the city, more on the countryside. How do you think with Cedric, what there are opportunities to make the countryside smarter?
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually. And the rural areas are also very important to me because, you know, you look at infrastructure disappearing from the rural areas, right? You see shops closing, you see, you know, actually hospitals, you know, not being nearby, or you see grocery stores disappearing and so on. So I do believe that with self-driving vehicles, with mobility as a service, with these vehicles, we have the ability to also serve the countryside and serve the rural areas. Now, in the first few years, you know, you might have to wait a bit longer in a rural area, especially with these cars initially just being purely in mobility as a service fleets, because the technology, the self-driving system, will just be so expensive and the costs will be so high that we will actually have completely self-driving vehicles without a dashboard, without steering wheel and pedals, mainly in fleets, in these mobility as a service fleets. Over time, as costs, you know, degrade, we do believe that this is also a great option for ownership vehicles, and then eventually, you know, people will be able to afford actually these self-driving vehicles and have them in their garage or have them, you know, basically closer by, and maybe sharing them amongst, you know, smaller, let's say, cities or countryside, you know, areas. So I think this will actually lead to probably more people living in rural areas, because they say, I can be productive on the way to work, so even a longer commute does not make a difference for me, and it will actually serve the countrysides well.
Thank you. So, thanks JJ for your insightful talk, and I think
welcome.
you have to come definitely next year again. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a great CEBIT.